The courtroom was deathly silent. Cameras rolled, broadcasting every second of the tense proceedings live to millions watching across the country. Judge Harold Beckett leaned back in his high-backed leather chair, his gavel tapping lightly against the mahogany bench, the sound hollow and condescending. His lips curled into a smirk as his gaze settled on the young man standing before him. "You think you're clever, don't you?" Judge Beckett sneered, his voice low and dripping with disdain. "Tell me, Mr. Jameson, if you're so intelligent, why are you standing in my courtroom today?" 17-year-old Andre Jameson didn't flinch. He stood still, his shoulders square, adjusting the knot of his plain navy tie with calm precision. His expression remained unreadable, a mask he had learned to wear out of necessity. In the front row of the gallery, his mother clasped her hands so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had turned white. She could feel what was coming. Everyone in the room could. Judge Beckett wasn't merely trying to pass judgment. He was trying to break her son down in front of an audience. Soft chuckles rippled through the gallery. Low murmurs rose as spectators whispered to each other, exchanging knowing looks. They had all seen this act before. Beckett was infamous for his public humiliations, for making defendants examples of what he believed to be society's decay, especially when they came from neighborhoods like Andre's. But what most of them didn't know was that Andre Jameson wasn't just any defendant. Andre calmly reached into the pocket of his press slacks and withdrew a folded piece of paper. His hand was steady as he held it up between his thumb and forefinger. "Your Honor," he said, his tone smooth, unshaken. "With all due respect, I'd like to introduce Exhibit A." Judge Beckett arched a brow, his condescension deepening. "And what, pray tell, is Exhibit A, Mr. Jameson?" Andre unfolded the document with deliberate care and held it up for the entire room to see. "It's your ruling from 5 years ago," he replied coolly. "You sentenced a white teenager, Lucas Avery, who committed the exact same offense as the one I'm accused of, to 6 months of probation and community service." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle into the room's thick air. "Meanwhile, you're pushing to send me away for 5 years." A collective gasp echoed through the courtroom. The media cameras zoomed in on the document in Andre's hand. The grainy copy of Judge Beckett's previous verdict now splashed across screens for the world to see. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Even the bailiff, who had been standing motionless and expressionless at Beckett's side, blinked in surprise. Judge Beckett's face flushed crimson. His mouth opened to speak, but no words came out at first. He looked as though someone had slapped him. How did you?" he stammered. "I did my research, sir," Andre said, his voice unwavering. "And now, the entire world can see the truth." Chaos erupted. Reporters outside the courtroom scrambled to update their coverage, shouting into microphones as they delivered breaking news updates on the explosive revelation. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs and gasps as spectators tried to process what they had just witnessed. Judge Beckett slammed his gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order in this courtroom," he barked. But it was far too late. The cameras had already captured the moment that Andre Jameson turned the tables on the man who had sought to ruin him. The day had started like any other. Andre sat at the kitchen table, absent-mindedly stirring his cereal until it went soggy. His mother, a nurse who worked back-to-back night shifts at the county hospital, sipped her coffee while watching him over the rim of her cup. "Are you ready for today?" she asked quietly, her voice gentle but heavy with worry. Andre nodded. "Yeah," he said. But inside, he wasn't sure. 2 months earlier, Andre had been arrested for a crime he hadn't committed. He and his friends had been hanging out near a convenience store when police showed up, sirens blaring. Apparently, someone had broken into the store the night before. Without asking questions, officers decided that Andre matched the description of the suspect. His mother had fought tooth and nail for a fair trial, but when she found out Judge Beckett was presiding over the case, her hope had dimmed. "You know what they say about him," her friend Jasmine had whispered over the phone. "He's made it his life's work to lock up boys who look like Andre." Andre had spent the night before the trial in their cramped living room, cross-legged on the floor, poring over case files and public records. What he discovered made his blood run cold. Jason Whitmore, Lucas Avery, Ethan Corbin, names of white teenagers who had stood before Beckett for similar charges and walked away with little more than slaps on their wrists that he knew he had to do something. So he gathered everything he could and prepared himself. Now, standing in front of Judge Beckett, Andre could see the man's rage boiling just beneath his skin. Beckett's face twisted into something monstrous. "This is my courtroom," Beckett bellowed, "and I will not be challenged." Andre didn't so much as blink. The audience sat stunned. All eyes were on the judge, waiting to see how he would respond. Before Beckett could speak again, a voice rang out from the back of the room. "Judge Beckett." A reporter called, standing and holding a microphone toward him. "Do you deny that this document is authentic?" The judge's mouth opened, then snapped shut. He was trapped, and he knew it. Another journalist's voice cut through the tension. "If what Mr. Jameson says is true, do you believe you've been fair in your rulings over the past 5 years?" "Bailiff," Beckett snapped, "remove all cameras from this courtroom." But it was too late. The damage had been done. The broadcast was live. The video was already spreading like wildfire. Just then, the courtroom doors swung open again. A man in a dark suit walked in, his badge gleaming under the harsh lights. 3 more people followed, each carrying heavy briefcases. The room went utterly still as every head turned toward them. The man stepped forward, his voice deep and authoritative. "Judge Harold Beckett," he said, "we need to have a word." Beckett's face turned ghostly pale that Andre's heart pounded as he watched the scene unfold. He had come to court expecting a fight. He had not expected the arrival of federal agents. "Who are you?" Beckett demanded, trying to summon his usual arrogance. The man calmly reached into his jacket and withdrew an official badge. "Special Agent Matthew DeWitt," he said. "Federal Bureau of Investigation." A wave of gasps rippled through the room. Beckett stiffened. "The FBI?" he repeated, his voice brittle. Agent DeWitt nodded. "We have reason to believe there has been widespread judicial misconduct in your court, Judge Beckett. Based on preliminary findings, we are requesting that you step down from these proceedings immediately." Murmurs turned into an uproar. Outside, reporters shouted into their microphones as the world learned that the FBI was now involved. Andre's mother covered her mouth with her hands, tears filling her eyes. Beckett's jaw clenched. "This is my courtroom," he growled. "You have no right to." "We have every right," DeWitt cut in smoothly. "And if you resist, we will escalate this to the Judicial Review Board." The room fell silent. For the first time in his career, Judge Beckett was powerless. His gaze flicked to Andre, a venomous glare that promised revenge. "You think you've won?" Beckett hissed under his breath, his tone low and dangerous. "The system will eat you alive, boy." Andre met his stare, unwavering. He leaned in, keeping his voice equally quiet. "I'm not afraid of you," he said, "and I'm not afraid of the truth." Beckett's eyes narrowed to slits, but before he could respond, the courtroom doors opened again. This time, a woman in a navy blue suit entered, her stride purposeful, a folder tucked under her arm. She stopped near the front of the room and faced Beckett. "My name is District Attorney Evelyn Porter," she announced. "I've been reviewing your cases." Another collective gasp rippled through the gallery. The district attorney herself had shown up. Porter opened the folder and pulled out a thick stack of documents. "Over the past 5 years, we have identified a clear and disturbing pattern in your sentencing. Black and brown defendants consistently receive harsher punishments than white defendants in similar cases." Beckett's face was a storm of fury and disbelief. "This is a witch hunt." Porter ignored him. "Effective immediately," she continued. "There will be a full investigation into your conduct. In the meantime, you are relieved of your duties as presiding judge on this case." The courtroom erupted. Reporters flooded back inside. Beckett pounded his gavel, but the noise drowned him out. Agent DeWitt stepped forward. "We strongly advise you to recuse yourself," DeWitt said, "unless you'd prefer to be escorted out." Beckett exhaled sharply, his chest rising and falling as he tried to control his fury. His gaze swept the room. Cameras, journalists, FBI agents, and an entire gallery witnessing his fall from grace. Finally, his eyes landed on Andre one last time. For a brief moment, something flickered across Beckett's face. Not anger, not disdain. Feared. He slammed his gavel onto the bench one final time. Fine, he spat. He stood abruptly and stormed toward the exit. As he passed DeWitt, he muttered something under his breath, something no one else could hear, but Andre knew exactly what it was. This wasn't over.